I'm going to preface this video by stating very clearly that I am not a journalist. I make these videos for entertainment, and they're based off my own observations and knowledge of Formula One, combined with independent research and information obtained from various news sites of whose sources I do not have access to. Right, is that enough to cover my ass? Because this one's going to get spicy. Hi, my name's Kimmy and I talk about Formula One in the world's second worst English speaking accent, and this Checo saga really is just the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? Anyone who loves to crunch and chew on the politics and money trails in this sport, well, we're just rolling in it like pigs in shit, aren't we? As I've talked about a couple of times previously, the reasons behind Red Bull's apparent retention of Sergio Perez, despite his pretty below par first half of the 2024 season, are more than likely more about money than any kind of confidence in his continued performance. And yes, I know Red Bull is a vast, extremely wealthy company, but this is capitalism. Investors and shareholders have to be answered to, and companies have growth targets to ensure that they can keep those stakeholders on the hook. Checo's involvement with the Red Bull brand sure gives them a boost as the preferred energy drink across a pretty decent chunk of the Americas, and his loss would more than likely put those targets at risk. Missing revenue targets lead to shareholders bailing out, which in turn leads to a company's value taking a hit. Plus, as a subsidiary of Red Bull GmbH, Red Bull Racing will have its own EBIT KPIs, of which, as I've previously discussed, Checo is a big contributor to. The more comfortable the Red Bull Racing balance sheet looks, the more control Christian Horner retains in the running of the business. If they're making bank, the parent company has less reason to interfere with how Horner wants to run the show, and the more likely he is to say sitting pretty is the winner of that internal power struggle we've all been hearing so much about. And that's a good segue into where all of this is going. Telmex and Disney, two of Checo's major sponsors among many others. And let's start with Disney, because the Telmex stuff, oh boy. Look, as of time of recording, it's sort of the middle of the afternoon on July 31st, 2024, which obviously is ahead of the rest of the world, but let's just call that today. Yesterday was the crunch meeting where the Red Bull powers that be made that decision that resulted in the news Perez would be retained, at least initially. It did sound kind of non-committal. Today, time zones notwithstanding, is the day that Disney Plus releases a new docu-series titled Checo Perez, Don't Give Up. Now, you might not have known about this thing dropping, and I don't blame you. The marketing seems to be almost exclusively targeted to a Latin American audience, which makes sense considering how big he is in that part of the world. Now, as much as obviously any involvement from Disney with regards to the ongoing stability of Checo's contract is pure conjecture, this is a pretty clear case of taking 2 and 2 and being fairly confident in your primary school math skills. Streaming services make money from new subscribers. New content, God, I hate that term, but it is kind of valid in this context. New content brings in new subs. And sure, no publicity is bad publicity and all that. Hey, Gordo. And sure, no publicity is bad publicity and all that, but I doubt Disney would be very happy about the subject of a new sports docuseries being dumped unceremoniously the day before release, particularly considering the storyline seems to focus on the first go-around we had on this particular Ferris wheel last year, plus the fact that they're apparently going hard on trying to gain new subscribers south of the US border. Imagine this. You spend a bunch of money following around and sponsoring a racing driver who had his seat threatened by someone many considered to be a washed-up has-been. He overcomes the adversity. He secures his place in the team. Joy, elation, relief, and then the day before you release the thing, said washed-up has-been is confirmed to take your guy's drive immediately. You know, that ain't gonna fly. So it's a timing issue then. Give them a few weeks, let Disney get its subscriber base boosted by a few points, and then backtrack on the whole thing. Maybe before Zandvoort, maybe after that. No, after Mexico. Especially when you look at the other big factors in this whole thing. Telmex, the 14th wealthiest person in the world as of 2024, and Liberty Media itself. And this is where I get worried about takedown notices. But you know, I only have 381 subscribers, so if this channel gets taken down, it's no big loss, right? That's a hint for you to subscribe and like this video and share it with your friends. Just Help me out while I'm still around. Maybe I should have considered having a social media presence before I made this video. Yeah, what will be will be. Okay, so let's start with the obvious. Telcel, which is a subsidiary of Telmex. Now, Telmex monopolizes the telecommunications market in Mexico, and they are one of Checo's key major sponsors. Telmex is owned by Carlos Slim, who is the aforementioned guy on the billionaires list. Telmex also owns Claro through América Móvil, which will come into play later. Carlos Slim is also the key driver and Telcel a major bankroller behind the retention of the at the time named Mexican Grand Prix back in 2019 when the government pulled its funding. Now we are deep into the murky world of Formula One conflicts of interest here. Slim has skin in the game not only because of the branding he has on that Red Bull car, but also in ticket and merchandise and other peripheral sales of an event his company is directly involved in funding. And then there's the Liberty media of it all. Reports are floating around out there that Liberty got directly involved in Red Bull's decision, as they were concerned losing Checo from the grid would directly impact revenue they expect to bank from this year's Mexico City Grand Prix. Now, F1 ownership meddling in the driver market is nothing new. Bernie Ecclestone was famous for it. And obviously a drop in Liberty Media and FOM's profits also mean a potential drop in prize money for the teams as a whole at the end of the season. That doesn't only put Horner & Co. in the bad books of F1's rights holders, but also potentially in the firing line of other teams as well. The Mexico City Grand Prix also injects the equivalent of a couple of $100 million into the local economy, of which many of the event's sponsors will benefit from, including, of course, Carlos Slim, who is not only big in the telecommunications and media game, but also in property, including hotels. Who else does Carlos Slim have a business interest with? That's right, Liberty Media. Telmex spin-off, América Móvil, of which Slim is the chairman of, merged its Chilean branch of Claro with Liberty-owned VTR back in 2022. I'm going to be honest, it took me a while to dig around and find that connection, but I got there in the end, and yes, I do feel like Charlie Kelly right now. But this isn't just some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. This is another case of 2 + 2 = 4. And yes, it is conjecture based off conclusions made from publicly available information. Cover your ass. You can't help but see how the maths is mathsing here. And the big loser in all of this is Daniel Ricciardo, at least in the short term. During the weekend of the Belgian Grand Prix, the guy was absolutely glowing. It's understandable that most F1 journalists and 90% of the Home Office pundits were firmly of the opinion Checo was about to get told to go knocking on Sauber or Alpine's doors because the music had stopped in the Red Bull garages. We had cryptic sound bites. There was a grin that just couldn't be contained and looked like it wasn't just for the cameras. There was that footage of Ricciardo, Horner and Laurent Mekies having what looked to be an important and very encouraging little chat. Max and Daniel left the track together, promptly jumped in a helicopter, and then Max posted a video that most people just thought was him hard launching a return to their teammate partnership. For Daniel, it seemed like all signs were pointing to yes. But overnight, it all changed, and everyone's been left scratching their heads. So what's going to happen over the next few months? Well, only time will tell. Regardless, it seems like Checo has a bit of breathing space until Mexico at least. And Daniel Ricciardo? Sorry honey, but Aussie billionaires just don't have that kind of money.